Hi, I'm Cory Skimming, Senior Product Marketing Manager with VMware Tanzu, and I'm joined here today with Michael Nitschinger from Couchbase. Welcome, Michael. And can you tell us a bit more about yourself and about Couchbase?
Thanks, Cory. Sure. Yeah, so as you said, my name is Michael Nitschinger, and I'm based in Austria, Vienna, and I'm a software architect on the SDK engineering and connectors team at Couchbase. So pretty much responsible for mainly everything that touches the JVM, including the Spring ecosystem, which is what we're going to talk about today.
Can you tell us a bit more about Couchbase? What is Couchbase? What is kind of the superpower of the company and your offering to the development community?
Yeah, sure. So Couchbase is a NoSQL database, which is very scalable and flexible of nature. So if you look at our origins, we're actually coming from a very cache-oriented background, key-value background, and then over the years expanded our capabilities to a fully fledged document database offering, which supports cross-data center replication, querying, so all these things that you need for modern and flexible applications, right? Which is one of the things which I think sets us apart from traditional relational databases, because many of our users that are coming from relational databases experience challenges in those areas. So of course, every user wants to build a great user experience, but it's not only building applications with great user experience, you also need to make sure that you are developing effectively. And then when you have developed the application, you want to make sure you deploy it efficiently, right? So it's the whole develop, deploy, develop, deploy cycle that you want to make sure that it's effective and efficient so that you can get the best user experience for your users out there.
So you're talking a little bit, touching a little bit almost on that DevOps cycle of, develop, deploy, and some of those agile concepts there where, obviously we want to get better software to production in a fast way. What are some of the trends that you're kind of seeing the developer community adopt as they work through these processes, and how does Couchbase really shine to help them do this?
Yeah, so there are a couple trends that we are seeing. I mean, one of the big things, for example, is the shift to mobile applications, right? So in addition to our server offering, we have something what we call Couchbase Mobile, which really extends our platform over to the mobile device, allowing companies to build applications that work seamlessly from the traditional web application over to the mobile side of things. It could be an application from games over to just a regular application where you are managing certain tasks, even going into the offline first space where we have customers who, for example, need to go into spaces or buildings where there is very limited reception, and they need to work with the applications. And then when they come out of the building or zone where they can't access their upstream database, Couchbase Mobile automatically syncs to the primary database, right? So the whole synchronization between your big application databases in the backend and your mobile devices is a big is a shift that we've been seeing increasing over the years, as an example.
Oh, interesting. So what kinds of industry would that be, where people are going are kind of losing connectivity and needing to have that maintained by their database?
So we're working with all kinds of different industries, both in the hospitality industries and also in the manufacturing or maintenance of big infrastructure, right? So you can imagine if you go into a big building which has lots of different heavy electrical machinery, which kind of shields the reception of your device that you're working with. And then you need to go in there, you need to perform maintenance tasks, right? So you need to repair a device, and then you need to put in the status in your device. And then when you go outside of that building, then it automatically syncs with your backup system. Or in the hospitality industry, we have, as an example, in the airline industry or in the cruise ship industry, it's very important that you very often have reception, but not all the time, right? Or it might depend on where you are on that vehicle, on the airplane or on the ship. And then you have an upstream component that syncs it back to your your main database.
Very cool. That makes total sense. I'd never really thought about it from like a cruise ship or an airline perspective. Taking a little bit of a step into Spring, since that's what we're here to talk about, how is Couchbase working with Spring, and what are some of the cool things that people are building with Couchbase and Spring?
So since Spring is heavily focused on the traditional like application space, right? So you're building a web application or you're building a backend application that serves mobile frontends or other types of applications. In the Spring ecosystem, we really try to blend in as much as possible, right? So we'll talk about, I'll talk about in a second of how we directly integrate. But I think first it's very important to understand the different components that Couchbase provides, which then relate to how you can use them inside, for example, Spring Data, right? So one of the challenges when you're building applications is usually you create, or you have to work with all kinds of different type of systems. So let's say you build an application and you start with a couple queries. So you have a relational database, and then you want to add search. So you add a search system, and then you have an analytics component. So you add an analytics system to your application zoo, basically your zoo of different backend services you're accessing your application with. Now with Couchbase, the way we've architected our system and the features we basically provide all of these services out of the box. So you get key value access for very fast access. So you can use our key value data store to run millions of operations per second with actually customers doing that. But then you can add capabilities on top. So you can use SQL for JSON, which is our nickel query language, which, for example, works very well with Spring Data repositories and the query derivation. But then we also have full text search capabilities, analytics, eventing, and other type of indexing access. Now, the great part about that architecture is you don't pay for what you don't need. So you can add nodes to your cluster with very specific services. So you can say, okay, I'm just going to start out with key value and query, SQL for JSON, nickel. But then over time, you realize, oh, I need search, full text search, oh, I need analytics. And then you can add more nodes to your cluster, add those services, and grow your Couchbase cluster as the demand grows or as your application requirements grow. And on the opposite side, you can take those services away if you don't need it anymore, right? So it's a very modular architecture, but what it brings you is one interface. So I'm working on the SDKs, and the SDKs, which we provide in 10 different languages, abstract all these different services for you, right? So you have one unified interface from your Spring application, despite if you want to just use key value access or if you want to do full text search, which is a very interesting value proposition, because as we talked about before, you want to develop fast and you want to be agile in your development process. And the less moving parts you have in a system, the faster you are adding new features and the quicker it is to take something from inception to production in one process, basically.
You've touched a little bit on some of the cool features and use cases for using Couchbase with Spring. What does Couchbase actually look like within the Spring ecosystem? And how can someone get started with this today?
Yes. So with Spring and Couchbase in the Spring ecosystem, our main focus was to blend in as much as possible, right? So if you're using, since we're a database, we mostly integrate with Spring Data, right? And inside Spring Data, as with other data stores, there are different levels of abstractions. The highest level of abstraction is the repository pattern, right? So we provide Couchbase repositories where you really write your interfaces, and then in the background, we translate them into nickel queries, as an example, or into key value access, and really giving you the most performant way to query your data based on your requirements. And then one level down, there is the template that is also present in other Spring Data implementations. And the template abstraction really sits between the actual raw Couchbase SDK and the repository abstraction. So the template layer gives you access to more specific features into Couchbase. So some of the features we have don't map one-to-one to the repository pattern. So you can always go one level deeper if you need to. So you would start with the repository. You're going to be able to do 80 or 90% of your requirements with the repository very quickly, very efficiently. And then for the rest 10%, you can go down to the template. Or if you need even more specific access, you can always just go to the SDK directly. We provide a configuration to you in your Spring environment, and all the beans, everything is automatically wired for you. Everything is set up for you. So you can choose the level of abstraction and flexibility and performance that your application requires. One more thing I'd really like to point out here is that the Couchbase SDK itself is built on Reactor, which is also part of the Spring ecosystem.
Amazing. If people wanted to get started today, what would you have them do?
We are part of the Spring website. So you can go to spring.io and you can go to the Spring data subsection, and there you'll find information on getting started with Couchbase. And then, of course, you can go to couchbase.com, where we also have information about the database itself, of course, documentation, but also very helpful information on how to integrate it with the Spring ecosystem.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Thanks, Cory. Thanks very much for having me.